Story 1. To Story 1. AITAH for divorcing my husband over a DNA test? Hi all, hoping to get some insight on this horrible situation. Me, F29, and my soon-to-be ex-husband, M27, recently had our first child together. Our relationship has been amazing for the most part. We spent most of our time together, laughing, dancing, traveling, and straight up having a blast. I am absolutely devastated by what has happened. My husband and I are both Caucasian, but my son came out significantly darker than either of us. Eventually, about 3 weeks postpartum, my husband demanded a DNA test. I told him I never cheated on him and that this was just a freak of nature sort of thing. He didn't believe me, so I gave in. However, I have never been unfaithful, and it hurt to know that he believed that was possibility. Hence my decision to allow the DNA test to put his mind at ease, but in return hand him divorce papers. I cannot be with someone who thinks I would do something like that. To look down on my character and accuse me of something so heinous. Anyways, the DNA test proved his paternity, and he's now accusing me of being all sorts of things. AITAH. First comment. It really can happen. I had a traumatic birth with my second child and was in out of consciousness. They used forceps suction to aid getting him out. So when they brought him in the next day, my mom was like, "That is not my grandson." Mind you, I was out of it. I passed out for the last time after I heard him cry, so I never saw his face. After my mom made a big scene, wristbands were checked. Guess what? That was not my baby, LOL. My mom threatened to sue the hospital if they didn't find her grandson, while I'm still Dr. GSG'd up from the previous night. Thank God my mom was there as an advocate, or I'd have taken a kid home that wasn't mine. Guess where my son was dressed getting ready to leave with someone? Not me. They locked down the maternity ward, didn't allow any babies to leave until they found him. I hadn't even named him yet. I still haven't told his dad about him being misplaced. He was in the military in the field about 3 hours away. He got to us an hour after they found our son. Second comment. I remember a story like that from years ago, but if I recall correctly, the kids were around middle school age or older. I remember that both parents were allowing the bio parents to be involved in the kids' lives. But one of the parents tried to get custody of both kids. I didn't follow the story after that. But it can't be a switched kid in this instance since the husband is the F there. I'd reckon that someone has some black ancestry from back in the day. I saw something similar when I was in college. There was a couple, both are black with brownish complexions. They had a kid who was significantly lighter than either of them. He thought his wife had cheated on him, but it was his kid. It looks like one of those white genes from back in the day decided to show up. Story 2. AITAH for refusing to give birth without epidural? I-24F found out this week that I am pregnant. Me and my husband have only been married for 3 months, so this pregnancy was unplanned, and I'm still trying to process it. However, I am willing to go through with it, and we're both happy with the news. My mill has been pressuring me as soon as I got married to have kids, since her other son and Deal have suffered with miscarriages for the past 4 years, so she's really persistent on wanting grandkids. Soon as I found out I was pregnant, my husband and I told my in-laws about the news in hopes that they'll help us out with doctors and things of that nature since we're unprepared. Some friends and family came over last night because they heard about the news and were very excited for me and my husband. My husband's cousin is also currently pregnant, so her and I were talking a lot about everything going on for us. She was saying I need to get good health insurance before I give birth in order to cover delivery, potential C-section, aftercare, etc., etc. She was educating me a lot, and also told me that epidural costs too, etc. My mill heard her mention epidural and went on to say, well, we won't be needing any of that anyway. I asked her what she meant, and she says the epidural is unnecessary and makes things way too easy. Women should have their babies the way nature intended. I was in shock, and so was everyone else in our living room. I naturally have a fear of childbirth after the horror stories I've heard, so no epidural is out of the question for me. I told her I outright refuse to have this child without epidural, and that's not her decision to make. She became super offended, and once our guests left, she told me I embarrassed her in front of them by talking back to her, and told my husband he needs to straighten me out. My husband told her it's ridiculous to expect me to have a child with no pain relief, and she responded with, well, I guess a baby is having your baby. It's been 3 days and she refuses to speak to my husband or me. My husband is now telling me that in order to keep the peace and move along, to just apologize to her and possibly reconsider the epidural. I told him I have nothing to apologize for since I didn't say anything wrong, and I will not be reconsidering my decision. He thinks I'm holding a grudge and being disrespectful because his mother only wants what's best for the baby. Someone please tell me AITAH. First comment. I had to sit my phone down and breathe for a few moments when she opened with, "We won't be needing that anyways," and then I had to set my phone down and breathe for a few moments every time Mill opened her FT mouth. The anger I have. Honestly, if her husband wants to side with his mom, then she needs to call her mom and get her mom involved in the business. Because two can play that game, and I know that if my future mother-in-law tried to tell me I could not have an epidural during delivery and insulted me over it, and I told my mom about it, my mom would rain down hellfire so severe that woman would be burning into a crispy little puddle of sadness, embarrassment, and shame for butting her F-king head in where it doesn't belong. My mom has already set my daughter's donor's mother straight a few times for trying to control me and put her nose in my business as it is, and trying to get my mom on her side with it too. I can just imagine what my mom would say if she had tried to pull something like this. Second comment. Right. Like, excuse me, Mill, but last time I checked, you weren't the one pushing a watermelon out of you. So your input is absolutely irrelevant. And her husband is a sad, soggy, spineless worm of a boy, and to tell his wife to reconsider the epidural to keep the peace is just hilarious. I want her to get one of those pregnancy contraction simulators and hook her husband up and have it set on high for at least 20 hours, because the average labor and delivery lasts about 20 hours. And then I want her to look dead in the eyes and ask him, "Do you want an epidural now, honey?" Because Mill is not giving birth and her husband is not giving birth, so neither of them have any right to butt their noses in on what she can or can't handle when she is giving birth to a child. Honestly, I wish I could text her husband and set him straight, because this has me absolutely livid right now. I was in labor for 49 hours and delivery took an additional hour. I got my epidural about 20 hours in, and it lasted 10 hours, and then after that I felt everything. I literally threw up and S-ed myself twice. So honest to God, Mill needs to shut the FCK up, as it's none of her damn business, because she is not the one giving birth. I also hate the phrase, "do what they want to keep the peace," because it really means tolerate and deal with the ABABSE and make that person happy so none of us have to deal with the repercussions of their bad behavior. I King hate enablers like that. If she caves to Mill's demands this time, who knows what she's going to demand next? And she's just going to have to sit there and roll over and let Mill have her way the entire time? No way. Your husband needs to stand up to his mother and stand up for you, or you need to leave for a while and give him the opportunity to figure his S out and truly determine who he's married to, because apparently he's married to his mother more than he is married to you. And you need to figure out if that's what you want in a marriage. Marriage is between two people, a husband and a wife. Not a husband, wife, and the husband's mother. Story 3. AITAH for calling the police and exposing my neighbor on social media for poisoning my dog? Advice needed. Hey everyone, I need some perspective on this. It's a long story, so bear with me. I 24 live in a quiet neighborhood with my 5-year-old golden retriever, Max. Max is more than just a pet, he's family. He's well-behaved, never aggressive, and loved by almost everyone around. Almost. My next-door neighbor, let's call him Bob M50s, has always been a bit off. He's known for his temper and odd behavior, but he mostly keeps to himself. We've never really had any direct conflicts until recently. A few weeks ago, Max started getting sick. He was lethargic, vomiting, and refused to eat. I took him to the vet, and after some tests, it was confirmed that he had been poisoned. I was devastated. I couldn't understand who would do such a thing to an innocent dog. Then, a neighbor, let's call her Jane, approached me. Jane told me she saw Bob throwing something over my fence into my yard around the time Max got sick. She didn't think much of it at the time, but felt guilty for not saying anything sooner. With this information, I decided to install a security camera in my backyard, hoping to catch Bob in the act if he tried anything again. To my horror, a few days later I reviewed the footage and saw Bob tossing what looked like food over my fence. I immediately called the police and handed over the evidence. Bob was arrested, but the story doesn't end there. I was furious and heartbroken. I couldn't just let this slide. I posted the footage on social media exposing Bob for the animal killer he is. The post went viral in our local community and the backlash was intense. People were outraged, and Bob's reputation was destroyed. He faced public shaming and even lost his job. Now, Bob's family is saying I went too far. They argue that calling the police was one thing, but publicly humiliating him was excessive and cruel. They claim that Bob has been dealing with severe mental health issues, which I wasn't aware of. Part of me feels justified. Max could have died and Bob needed to be held accountable. But another part of me wonders if I took it too far by posting it online. So, AITAH for calling the police and exposing my neighbor on social media for poisoning my dog? First comment. Sadly, in the United States, it's impossible to get people mental health care if they are not cooperative, and nearly impossible if they are cooperative. At most, you get someone held for a few days if they are suicidal and have an active plan. So out of it, they are dangerous to themselves without being suicidal, or dangerous to others as in have a plan to harm another human being. After the few days where they are given medication, nearly every only is released and they can just stop taking medication. They also don't really go on anyone's word. If you say Bob threatens to kill someone and has a plan and Bob says he is lying and convinces them he is out in a couple hours, there is no way to get people real help if they don't want help. It's not like TV. As a society, we just decided to let the criminal justice system deal with mental health about 40 years ago, and it's gone badly. Second comment. Absolutely NTA. I am currently dealing with something similar. I have a 70 male Niebuhr community garden, basically only used by me and my dog Cat. He keeps throwing chemicals about and rotting food too. I have spoke to housing, police, and council. I have been fortunate where my dog Cat haven't gotten sick. But believe me, if one of them gets sick or dies, there will be absolute hell to pay. Court for vet bills, public shaming, and I will make his life a misery at best. I have mental health myself and id gaff about this, guys. You FCK with my animal, I will FCK with you.